The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Welcome back, Shifties, to the next episode of The Shift. I'm so glad you're here to join us. Today, there is going to be a lot of energy. It's really exciting. I'm so thrilled to welcome our guest today is Ashley Marston. Ashley works at the Emory, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that. I also say that Ashley, that she is a PhD candidate. She will be a PhD within the next 8 months. She also has her nurse executive board certification in leadership. And Ashley, I'm so happy to have you here. I'll just tell a quick little story. Ashley and I met because of two great nursing leaders a couple years ago. And this is really about meaningful connections and why it's important to network and make meaningful connections. And then Ashley and I were reunited, and it feels so good, Peaches and Herb. And so we were reunited at the Daisy Day in Atlanta, and we just started chit-chatting, and I was so proud and thrilled to hear all the great things that Ashley was doing, both personally and professionally. And she and I connected, and I said, oh my gosh, you have to be a guest on The Shift, because clearly, Ashley, you're going to learn, has made a lot of shifts personally and professionally. So I'm going to let you kick it off, do your little intro, say hey to all the shifties, and let's get the party started.
Of course. Well, hey, Shifties. And I think that, when people say I match energies, well, I feel like me and you just immediately matched energies because I have a lot of energy and very positive, very optimistic. So, just to give everyone a little bit of background, I moved here from Memphis, Tennessee last year. I lived right under Memphis in Mississippi, but all of my nursing career was there until last year when I accepted a wonderful opportunity here at Emory. When I first became a baby nurse, which actually wasn't too long ago, I was in the emergency department, one of the busiest, not the biggest, but one of the busiest in Memphis. We called ourselves the Dirty South because it was one of those areas in South Memphis. But some of the most amazing nursing colleagues I met throughout my time there. And as you know, if you're an emergency department nurse, you quickly become a charge nurse, maybe less than a year. So you become a charge nurse very quickly, but more than that, I was able to become a patient care coordinator, which is equivalent of a manager type role in the ER. And I remember just being so excited because we had lower turnover. We really worked as a team. I call it the good old days of the ER. We didn't have agency, nothing against agency, but we really just had a core team that you worked your booty off for a certain amount of hours, and then you were pretty good the rest of the night, because I was night shift too, which also I feel like gives you some unique flavor. So I did that for a long time, and I was telling you a little while ago about how transitioning from there, and then I went into pediatrics and hematology oncology as well. Part of that transition, though, was a lot of the experience I had with trying to push the envelope a lot in the emergency department. So, pushing different things with my leaders and having new ideas, like what if we did this orientation binder, all of these different ideas that I had, and kind of not being able to push those forward. And I just knew I wanted to do something more. I wanted to make an impact greater. And I had been trying to get into a certain place for a long time, and this will go into our talk later, but it's all about networking. And I had really had a friend who was somewhere, and she's like, just apply, just try again, you got this. So I went in, transitioned, worked in the infusion center for a while at this wonderful place, and then someone took a chance on me. So I think that's another point I'll mention later. A wonderful leader, I call it a motivational hire, because I really
Well,
had no business.
I
But
just want to say, you know what, Ashley, I want to say something. That's a really good point. I had a really great leader, Dr. Marilyn Schaffner, shout out. She's retired, but she was chief nursing officer. She took a chance on me. She took a leap of faith, and she coached and mentored me. And I think in healthcare and in nursing, but really just as professionals, we all need a mentor. And sometimes you do have to take that leap of faith. So that happened to me too. And I like that energy. So go ahead, share it, keep going.
I love that. So, and I mean, it's something that I always will remember, because I know that now where I am now, it would not have started if I hadn't have built those connections and this all hadn't have played out the way it kind of did. And I took a job where a lot of people don't want a job in, and that's nursing policy. So you think, oh, that's so boring, but really now I realize so much of our practice is based on those policies, those scopes, those standards of practice, that having a good foundation built on that was probably one of the best moves I had made. And then shortly after that, I had a couple of amazing leaders come in and really show me the importance of quality and safety, process improvement, magnet, professional governance. And then those type of things have become my passion ever since then. I've always been kind of a mix. So I'm a very detail oriented person, but I can also see things conceptually. And so it's made people kind of be like, oh, wait, you know how to get it in the weeds. And so sometimes, though, people will respect you a little more, especially nurses, if you can kind of speak to what they're doing in the weeds or speak to what's going on in the weeds, but also kind of lead them at a higher level. So I've quickly moved through all of those different venues that I mentioned. And then I took a role here with Emory Ambulatory, and got to give a shout out here because they are one of the first in Georgia ambulatory freestanding to receive magnet recognition in the world, and there's still only 3. And so hearing that, and when I interviewed with Dina Gillen and Carla Schroeder, I told my husband, I said, these are the nursing leaders they write about in our textbooks, but you just don't think that they're real. You're like, no, that's cute, but that doesn't exist. Well, I'm here to tell you it does exist. And the transformational leadership, every single piece of that they embody. So coming here was a no-brainer. And then now I have recently been promoted to Associate Chief Nursing Officer for Ambulatory Care. So I couldn't be more blessed and excited to share more about some of the different shifts I've had throughout my career.
I love the shift, and that's what we were talking about is, your recent shift. So congratulations with the ACNO role. Do you feel like sometimes, and I always, I do my RISE presentation all over the country, and it's reignite, inspire, support, empower. And you got to hear a little very abbreviated version of it at Daisy Day in Atlanta. But I'm a master asker. Like, I will ask anybody anything. And I feel like because there's going to be 2 answers. It's either going to be yes or no. So I feel like when my first chief nursing officer, Marilyn, took a leap of faith, I was a master asker. I said, I worked at a magnet hospital. I believe that I can take the Medical University of South Carolina, which is where I worked, to magnet designation. Will you consider hiring me? Master asker. She said yes, but of course through HR I have to go through the process. So I'm a master asker. And I always say this, we talked about this offline. I have a 20 and 19-year-old, a 20-year-old son, a 19-year-old daughter. So there's the master asker, which I take pride in being a master asker. But then there's also the ask, A-S-K, the ask hole. And sometimes those people are the ones that ask for advice, and they never take it. Or they just keep asking and asking the same thing over and over because they won't accept your answer. Or they just ask for everything, which would be my 19-year-old who is still sending me her Christmas list at 19, asking for the moon. So I just, I didn't know if you've had that experience, Ashley, when you just have to ask for what you want.
100%. I think we might have just cracked the case, because it's so funny you said that, because as a child, my mom raised me great. She said no to almost everything. And so I've always had the, adoption of, well, what's the worst thing they can say is no. And it's not like I haven't heard that before. So you might as well ask. And so I've been like that my whole life as well. But so when I was moving through the ER transition, I was asking. I'm like, that's not really going the way I want it to go. And when I look back, it was really interesting, because when I stayed PRN in the ER, which I also think has given me a little bit of an edge, because I know what the nurses are going through in real time. So I haven't been so far removed from the bedside that I can't relate to them. And so when I went back, though, just PRN, when I was a leader, I kind of looked at things differently. Like, wow, I think I really was going through burnout and really depersonalized the care I was giving to them because of what I was going through. And so then as I've gone throughout leadership, I've had a couple of more instances where, I really kept getting no's, or stuff did not go my way. And so I've really adopted the philosophy of, it's not a setback. It's a set up for something better that's coming that maybe I couldn't have dreamed of, because I could not. If you had asked me 2 years ago, I was going to be where I was for the rest of my life. I wasn't going anywhere. I was not moving for sure, but there would be no way I could guess where I am today. And I had one of my favorite colleagues and still one of my best friends tell me when she first met me, I had my master's, I was great, all this process and quality improvement. But she told me one day, she looked at me and she was like, "You got to get sexy." And I thought, well, what do you mean by that? And then she said, "You got to get those letters behind your name. You got to start really getting those certifications and start leveling yourself up." And she was so right, because I went back, went to get my PhD around that time. I got my certification. But more than that, I took classes on emotional intelligence, resilience. Time I was getting no's or feeling like I was getting in a setback, instead of kind of internalizing it and blaming myself, I said, well, you know what can I control? What can I do better? And so I've always tried to keep leveling up, because that's what we want as nurses, right? To be top of market, top of license. So we got to level ourselves up as well. So I think that is awesome advice. And, no is just the worst thing they can say, but that just means you can figure out another way to ask it.
The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Do you know your current burnout level? Almost 70% of hospitals and healthcare systems can't answer this question. What we do know are the devastating results of burnout: increase in turnover, increase in medication errors and missed care, a decrease in the patient experience, and a decrease in quality outcomes. SE Healthcare can help with our evidence-based approach. Leaders can enhance nurse satisfaction and nurse engagement, improve quality care outcomes, and reduce burnout by 52%. Are you ready to uncover burnout's impact on your team? Visit us at sehealthcaresolutions.com/talk. And I've never heard level yourself up, but I think that's a new word, shifties, that we can add to our little vocabulary, is level yourself up. And it takes a really courageous, great person in your life to give you that type of motivation, inspiration, and advice. The other thing I just want to say is, you mentioned this, Ashley, and now I'm thinking about, I have a lot of energy. Like, this is me at 70%. And if I'm at 100%, like, I'm chewing through barbed wire and I scare people. And I would be really afraid if you and I had to work together, because there's so much energy. We'd have like fireworks going off. Can you tell the shifties, how do you maintain the passion and the energy? That's the one question. So how do you maintain passion and energy? And how do you sometimes have to quell the passion so you don't scare people? Because sometimes I've been coached that sometimes my passion comes across as aggression. So I don't know if you can kind of share your insight on that.
So for me, when I think about that, I think of emotional intelligence immediately, and trying to learn how different situations require a different level of energy, because we want to be, and it was so funny because me and my leader were talking about this today, you want to be above that line and the creative, innovative thinking the majority of your time, but there are some times where you do have to be in the sit back, and you kind of have to sit in your emotions and learn, what are your lessons learned? What is our next step? Because sometimes you do have to have those moments too, where you have to bring it down and be serious. And I use humor a lot. I don't know if you can tell by my laugh and my energy, but I use humor a lot because I do feel like we do a really hard job every day, putting others before ourselves. But we also sometimes forget about people. I've led Magnet for so long. It's structure, process, outcome. But I tell people all the time, don't forget people, because if you don't have your people, your staff, your patients, you don't have anything. And so we have to not forget that, but also realize there's a harmony that you have to have kind of between everything. And then also, put time and prioritize yourself. So there's some also big events that have happened in my life too, where my body will tell me, okay, that's enough, and it'll shut you down for you, and you have to just prioritize your mental health, your physical health, and make sure you're taking your PTO, taking your breaks, because those things are important as well. Because when you come and step across that threshold, you want to be your best self. You want to be there for others. I mean, that's kind of, I think, everybody's why at the root of it. It all has to do with caring for others. And so just finding that harmony or that balance between it.
You said something that I really like, and I'm a self-professed people first, human-centered leader. And I feel like anytime you talk about key performance indicators or KPIs, really, who moves the needle? It's your people. Your people move success. And for me, key performance indicators, we talk about decreasing falls, decreasing pressure injuries, decreasing readmission rates. But the true KPIs to me are to keep your people involved, keep them interested, and keep them inspired. And those are the KPIs of a people first, human centered leader. And I was wondering if you had any insight on how you keep your ambulatory team inspired.
Absolutely. So I feel like some of my favorite things, and this has also worked for me in the past, is making them feel like they're part of the conversation. So that you can do through professional governance, also being present, boots on the ground, go to the Gemba, however you want to say it, but them feeling like you really care about them, getting out there at the point of care with your people. And, I have that example here as well. And it's so refreshing because then the nurses do feel like, okay, they're really listening. And through professional governance, I'm a data girl at heart, but through professional governance, even but in my past life too, when they feel like they're understanding the data more and they're a part of it, they're going to tell you what's wrong, and you want every type of nurse on your governance councils. You want the naysayers, you want the optimists, you want everyone, because they're going to tell you what's wrong with the process. Nurses, we know what's wrong. We have duct taped it to the pole, to the IV pole. So we know what's going right or wrong. So truly listen to them and take what they're saying to heart. And then I love closing the loop. And so I think that's what has always been helpful for me, is not just listening to them, being empathetic, trying to find a solution with them, not for them, but then closing the loop. So if we can't do something, explaining to them, okay, we really want to do something, but we can't do it because of XYZ, but why don't we try to look at it this way? You want to work on that and come back to me, but also giving them the tools and resources to do their job in a more efficient and effective way. I think as a leader, I've done a lot of that, using technology, to our advantage, trying to get people tools and resources in an easier way so they don't have to go all around the world for one thing, but also keeping them inspired by storytelling and communicating with each other. And, we do different, sessions. We're going to start in 2025, a whole new called Coffee with Carla. And Carla's my fearless leader here, the chief nurse of ambulatory and virtual nursing. But we're going to sit down with her kind of in a podcast style, but share the stories that we've been sharing throughout Emory about our nurses. And we've got some really cool mentorship stories about the generational gaps between some of the new nurses and some of our nurses here who have spanned over 25 years still at the bedside here at Emory. And so sharing those stories though, and realizing that, we've all been through something very similar. And so how can we share best lessons learned or opportunities to improve ourselves? And I think that makes you feel like a larger community because, especially in ambulatory, we span 3/4 of the state of Georgia. And so that's a huge footprint to try to put your footprint, in everywhere. So how can we use creative ways to do that is really what we've been working on lately.
Oh my gosh, Ashley, we could sit here and talk for hours because I'm nerding out about a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. You talk about data. Data drives decisions. That's why I was a magnet program director. I loved taking the voice of the nurse, looking at data, driving decisions. That's why I'm really excited to have to do a commercial for SE Healthcare. We look at data. We get data down to the unit level, and we hear from nurses what causes burnout in their environment, and it helps leaders create prioritize action plans, which is music to the ears of any leader, especially a structure process outcome girl. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as I said, we could sit here and talk for hours and totally nerd out. At the end, we typically leave the shifties, Ashley, with a couple key takeaways. And I heard some incredible takeaways, but I'm going to give it to you first. And if you could just say 3 things that you think would be incredibly valuable for the shifties to help them make a shift in their personal professional life, now's your chance. I want this to be a drop the mic moment.
I like dropping the mic. Okay, so if I could only pick 3, I would say first was the part about this is not a setback, but a setup for something better in your future. Because we all know as a bedside nurse, but also if you start moving into leadership, a lot of things may not go your way. And I make jokes that I did fake interviews along the way, and a lot of things did not go my way, or, I was in a very bad environment sometimes, but you have to realize, okay, there's something bigger I can't see. So again, what can I control? Also, another takeaway for me is relationships. So that can mean a lot of things. And I do feel like you have to have the same principles in your personal relationships and professional, as far as you have to communicate. They say once you stop communicating, it's over. And that's for me, because I'm going to tell you every single thing that's going on. But you have to communicate. Nurse is the most trusted profession. We have to trust each other. And that's part of that relationship building. You have to also network when it comes to relationships. Nursing seems like this whole big, huge thing, but look at life bringing us back together. You never know who's going to come back into your little circle, and it really isn't so big and so far-fetched that you can't create meaningful relationships across nursing at a national or international level. And then lastly, I would say you become what you think about. So be bold, be courageous in your thoughts. We're all going to get negative thoughts come into our head, that imposter syndrome and things throughout our career, but reframe the way you think, shift that paradigm in your own life, and you will start seeing other things open up ahead of you.
Ooh, I love them. That was you dropped the mic. You dropped the mic, Ashley. Thank you. You knew the assignment coming in.
All right. I had my homework done.
Thank you, girl. So I just want to say, thank you, Ashley. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait. After you get your PhD, I want you to come back on the shift, and I'm going to call you Dr. Marston. And I would love to do that. And when I get the shifty merchandise, because we do have some merch, I'm going to send some to you, because I want everyone to start wearing the shift hats and the shift sweatshirts. We got all kinds of merch. And then I have one last message, and I end up every episode. Shifties, remember, your shift makes a difference. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, rate, review, and amplify The Shift today.